Good afternoon, Year 3, and welcome to Friday's art lesson. We love a bit of art on a Friday, so today we're going to be creating a stencil and we are going to be using it for an effect. So hopefully you've had a little look at these images on here and taken a little bit of a guess what we might be referring to. We're actually looking at graffiti today because you can find them in many urban areas. So is it art or is it vandalism? Have a little think. Might want to pause the video and discuss with the person next to you or person who is available at home, just to discuss what your opinions and views are on graffiti. Okay, right, let's have a little look at what other people say about graffiti. Hopefully this plays.
Spray-painted subway cars, tagged bridges, mural-covered walls. Graffiti pops up boldly throughout our cities. It can make statements about identity, art, empowerment, and politics, while simultaneously being associated with destruction. And, it turns out, it's nothing new. Graffiti, or the act of writing or scribbling on public property, has been around for thousands of years. And across that span of time, it's raised the same questions we debate now. Is it art? Is it vandalism? In the 1st century BCE, Romans regularly inscribed messages on public walls, while oceans away, Mayans were prolifically scratching drawings onto their surfaces. And it wasn't always a subversive act. In Pompeii, ordinary citizens regularly marked public walls with magic spells, prose about unrequited love, political campaign slogans, and even messages to champion their favorite gladiators. Some, including the Greek philosopher Plutarch, pushed back, deeming graffiti ridiculous and pointless. But it wasn't until the 5th century that the roots of the modern concept of vandalism were planted. At that time, a barbaric tribe known as the Vandals swept through Rome, pillaging and destroying the city. But it wasn't until centuries later that the term vandalism was actually coined, in an outcry against the defacing of art during the French Revolution. And as graffiti became increasingly associated with deliberate rebellion and provocativeness, it took on its vandalist label. That's part of the reason why today, many graffiti artists stay underground. Some assume alternate identities to avoid retribution, while others do so to establish camaraderie and make claim to territory. Beginning with the tags of the 1960s, a novel overlap of celebrity and anonymity hit the streets of New York City and Philadelphia. Taggers used coded labels to trace their movements around cities while often alluding to their origins. And the very illegality of graffiti making that forced it into the shadows also added to its intrigue and growing base of followers. The question of space and ownership is central to graffiti's history. Its contemporary evolution has gone hand in hand with counterculture scenes. While these movements raised their anti-establishment voices, graffiti artists likewise challenged established boundaries of public property. They reclaimed subway cars, billboards, and even once went so far as to paint an elephant in the city zoo. Political movements, too, have used wall writing to visually spread their messages. During World War II, both the Nazi Party and resistance groups covered walls with propaganda. And the Berlin Wall's one-sided graffiti can be seen as a striking symbol of repression versus relatively unrestricted public access. As the counterculture movements associated with graffiti become mainstream, does graffiti too become accepted? Since the creation of so-called graffiti unions in the 1970s and the admission of select graffiti artists into art galleries a decade later, graffiti has straddled the line between being outside and inside the mainstream. And the appropriation of graffiti styles by marketers and typographers has made this definition even more unclear. The once unlikely partnerships of graffiti artists with traditional museums and brands have brought these artists out of the underground and into the spotlight. Although graffiti is linked to destruction, it's also a medium of unrestricted artistic expression. Today, the debate about the boundary between defacing and beautifying continues. Meanwhile, graffiti artists challenge common consensus about the value of art and the degree to which any space can be owned. Whether spraying, scrawling, or scratching, graffiti brings these questions of ownership, art, and acceptability to the surface.
Okay, so there are two sides to this, and graffiti's become more common, commonly accepted in modern day times, as they have said. And just a little bit of something that I know: if you go to Canterbury Cathedral, there's actually some graffiti that has been scratched into the walls. Now, we found this when we went on our school trip last year, and it was really cool to find, and for one of the leaders that was taking us round to show us, because we were talking about the fact that we're doing Urban Pioneers and we've been looking at graffiti and its origins, and they said, oh, we have a bit of graffiti here in the Canterbury Cathedral. I think it was in their one of the garden areas where the monks used to live and work in this garden area. So that was really cool. Okay, so one side of the story then. So graffiti can be seen as a stain on communities, so not very nice, an eyesore or evidence of social breakdown. It's considered an element of broken windows theory, the idea that even small signs of disorder in a community lead to more disorder, which eventually escalates into gang warfare and a breakdown of law and order. So gang warfare is quite far, but it is true, and it happens. Like the video said, you know, some people use graffiti for a way to show their dominance and show that it is their land, and other people just use it for art. But it does. Some people think, you know, a bit of graffiti, if they're tagging walls, you know, that is going to bring breakdown of law and order. So breaking the rules, really. And then the other side of the story, so there's someone there who is just cleaning graffiti off a wall. Now, I wouldn't consider that lovely graffiti. That's just, it is kind of vandalism, isn't it? Because it's not like they've tried to make it look lovely and beautiful. And then the other side of the graffiti story is people who create graffiti see themselves as artists, expressing themselves on the public canvas. And the grammar of graffiti, its media and techniques, is now the basis of some of the most imaginative, beautiful and poignant street art out there, all with the blessing of property owners and communities. So rather than just going out there and creating a beautiful picture, they actually go and ask people, oh, can I use this space to create some graffiti art? And this is probably, they show them what they're probably imagining in their heads. But say something like this. Now this is amazing. There's so much detail. It's so cool. Compared to this picture, the lovely picture of Donald Duck there, to the one where the man is spraying off the scribbles and tags. There's definitely a difference in professional graffiti and somebody who just wants to go and vandalize a wall. Now, there are many examples of graffiti, and we have we know of a very special person who is Banksy, and he creates graffiti art, and his work looks very stenciled. And as you know, we recently, well, this one has been removed, that was in Dover, but we recently, I say recently, a couple of years ago now, had this one at Payers Park, which has now been taken and sold. But these forms of art and the images, they get sold for millions and millions. So it's entirely up to you if you think it's vandalism or if you think it's art. But there are types of vandalism and types of graffiti art. So, but yeah, I love this one, and obviously it was in Folkestone, so amazing. Right, so today you're going to create your own stencil of a graffiti letter, which is going to be your first initial. I'm choosing B, Miss B, and it's just a quite nice shape as well. So when you've completed your stencil, you're going to be using sponges to create a spray paint texture for your letter. You can blend colours, overlap different colours by moving the stencil slightly if you wanted, so you give yourself more of a shadow, or you can do it on the sponge here, so you can overlap colours. I tried doing a little ombre effect on one of mine. Now, I had a little bit of a problem. As you can imagine, when I go to do my art videos, I always have some slight problem. And now I figured out what was causing it. So I had my streaming software on that I do to record these videos, but then I was also using the visualizer to record me creating the stencil. And what happens is you start to film and it cancels it. And I, being me, completely oblivious to this. So I haven't got the video, but I have some screenshots. So here you can see my stencil outline that I have done. And all I have done to this is I've cut out, so this is where you need to make sure you are being very careful. You need to cut out the inside of it, so then you are just left with the outside. And if you have got any bits in the middle, like my bee has 2 bits in the middle, you just cut them out very carefully as well, so you can keep them and place them inside the stencil when you've cut it out and you are ready to create your graffiti art. So here it is cut out, and then I've placed the little bits in the middle. Now I will show you, because I've done another video, because luckily you can use these stencils and you can reuse them, and luckily I had a spare bit of paper. But I stuck a bit of sellotape on the back of mine, so I double-sided it, and then I stuck it to the paper so it doesn't move when you do the sponging. And then that's it. My first one, when I sponged it down, and I'm just going to show you the video of me doing the second one, because like I said, this stencil can be reused, which is great. It's a great thing to use. So make sure you keep your stencils, because we might be doing a big mural of our names at school. So keep your stencils. Now if you don't have paints or anything, that's fine. You can just colour it in. Colour in your stencil. So there I am, just dabbing it, and I'm using one sponge for the whole thing. I've just been using different colours. So holding it down, because it does get quite sticky after a while, especially if you've used it once. I'm just getting the light green now on that corner. But I don't have to worry about my middle part, because that's stuck down with a bit of sellotape. So if you find it that the stencil does move a lot, like I'm finding it, you might want to sellotape that down and at one corner, or put a paper clip at the top. Again, it's entirely up to you how you do it, what colours you use, the way that you do it. I'm just showing you some blending there. You get some blue, do that at the bottom. And then I wanted to do some little extra, so I'm going to mix the colours together as I dab. So then that's a nice sort of blend there. And then I start doing it so it goes over each other. Make sure you cover up any areas so you're not getting paint anywhere. I don't want to be responsible for ruining somebody's table or side. Okay, just mixing that in there. So then the final product, you will see it. I just take off the main stencil bit. I don't want to get it on the little hoof. And then I just peel the middle part there. And voila! That's my second stencil of my initial. And here is my original, looking glorious, because I spent way more time on it. And I really like that. I think it's very effective, what I have created there. So it's going to be really good to see what you have created. Now, Here are some letters that you can use or stencil from. I have also put just a sheet on the school website of other examples, but you can go online as well. You can use Google. If you just look for Google on Google graffiti letter styles, and you'll get many different styles coming up. If you wanted to, you can add a shadow on as well. You can, once it's dried, you might want to put a bit of black pen on there, or a grey shadow, or whatever colour shadow you want. But yeah, have fun and enjoy this lesson. I look forward to seeing what you have come up with. I think I've got an extra page here of different colours and ways to do it there. So enjoy, and I will have a lovely weekend. Yay, weekend is here already. That means one more week of home learning, and then you'll be back at school with us on Monday the 8th. I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you, goodbye, have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you all on Monday.